Unlike other versions of Spider-Man, the Noir version of Peter Parker was never guided by the famous mantra, "With great power comes great responsibility." Instead, a city choked by the Great Depression and the brutal murder of his uncle engraved in him a far more radical belief. When power becomes an oppressive force, it is the duty of the people to dismantle it. Fueled by a deep, citywide desire for vengeance and an unyielding fury for justice, Peter Parker takes the mantle of vigilante. He launches a one-man war against the city's corrupt crime lord, the Goblin. January 1933. Police storm into the office of J. Jonah Jameson at the Daily Bugle after reports of a shooting. Bursting through the door, guns drawn, they find Jonah slumped in his chair, dead from gunfire. Across the room, the figure responsible, the Spider-Man. The officers shout in shock, realizing the killer is right in front of them. Spider-Man reacts quickly. He fires webs at one of the officers, trapping him before leaping out the window. Bullets fly as another cop opens fire. One round grazes his arm, but he escapes into the night. The city is left shaken. Just weeks earlier, no one had ever even heard of a Spider-Man. No one could have predicted the storm that was coming. Back in time, 3 weeks before, Daily Bugle reporter Ben Urich is at Riverside Drive. Along the Hudson River, shanty towns of squatters rise out of the shadows of the Depression. Jonah had sent Ben to capture images of broken men, desperate women, and children in rags. Pictures meant to stir pity in the readers. As Urich snaps photos, he speaks with one squatter. The man reveals his coat is stuffed with pages of the Bugle, not for reading, but for warmth. His words cut deeper than any photograph could. Nearby, a small crowd gathers. On a wooden soapbox stands May Parker, fiery and unafraid. She rallies the people, shouting that the government promised jobs, yet millions are unemployed. Politicians argue not about saving lives, but about how best to profit from the suffering of the poor. Her words strike hard in the cold winter air, but May's voice draws attention from dangerous eyes. From the crowd steps Fancy Dan and his enforcers, thugs working for the Goblin, one of the city's most feared crime bosses. Dan mocks her, calling her un-American, threatening that she should leave if she hates the system so much. The tension grows. Peter Parker, May's young nephew, can't stand by. He pushes through the crowd, placing himself between May and the enforcers. Brave but untrained, he shouts in her defense. The thugs don't hesitate. With a crushing blow to the gut, Ox, the largest of them, knocks Peter down like a rag doll. The crowd gasps as the boy crumbles, his courage no match for the Goblin's muscle. This is only the beginning of the darkness that will engulf the city. May called out for them to let him go, but Montana cracked his whip and wrapped it around her, pulling her off balance. The sudden flash of a camera lit up the scene. Urich had arrived, interrupting the assault. The gang recognized him immediately. Ox moved toward him, ready to grab his camera and do harm, but Dan stepped in, warning him not to touch Urich, who was off limits. With the tension broken, the three men left. Urich helped Peter to his feet, and May thanked him for intervening. Urich offered to give them a ride, and they accepted. Their journey brought them to the Bowery Welfare Center, a place May described as a shelter that gave warm meals and a safe bed to those in need. Urich observed that such charity might look like socialism to some. Peter pointed to a fenced-off supply area, explaining that it had been built after his uncle was killed by Goblin's men. May said there was no proof of that, but Peter refused to back down. Once she walked away, Peter cursed under his breath, frustrated that gangsters kept targeting them for challenging the corrupt system of banks, businesses, and politicians. Urich considered leaving, but something in Peter's determination convinced him to stay. He took him to an underground bar owned by Felicia Hardy, where Peter's bold attitude caught her attention. Urich pointed out the figures inside: politicians, police, and businessmen, all with ties to Goblin, who worked for whoever could pay. Peter confided his belief that Goblin had been hired to kill his uncle. Urich explained how it could have happened. Alcuna arranged the job, Crane provided the money, the police covered it up, and the mayor benefited. He listed Goblin's enforcers, including Craven and Vulture. Goblin appeared in person, stepping out of the shadows with a smug expression, taunting Peter about his uncle's death. Peter's anger boiled over, and he threw a drink straight into Goblin's face. Urich quickly pulled him outside, warning that such a move could have deadly consequences, but Peter refused to be intimidated. Later, Urich brought Peter to meet J. Jonah Jameson, who offered him a position at the Daily Bugle. Working alongside Urich, Peter began to see the full scope of the city's corruption and the suffering it caused. During one conversation, Peter revealed that he had found his uncle's body, torn apart not by dogs, as the police claimed, but by Vulture. Ulrich admitted that he had been there and had witnessed it himself. Weeks passed, and Ulrich went to cover a late-night operation at a warehouse where Goblin's men were moving a strange, cursed statue. The crate cracked open, releasing a swarm of venomous spiders. One of them bit Peter, but instead of killing him, the venom left him with strange new powers. Peter tested these abilities in secret, learning to climb walls, move with unnatural agility, and produce webbing. Meanwhile, Ulrich attempted to blackmail Norman Osborn with a compromising photograph, but Norman dismissed the threat without concern. Soon after, a masked Peter crashed into one of Norman's gatherings. Using his webbing, he disarmed the guards and confronted Norman directly. In the chaos, he recognized Ulrich among the onlookers and accused him of still working with Goblin. Gunfire erupted, forcing Peter to retreat into the night. Shaken, Ulrich decided to sever all ties with Goblin and planned to reveal everything to Jameson. Before he could act, he was ambushed. That night, Peter discovered his uncle's old military uniform and firearm. Remembering the man's belief in fighting against injustice, Peter crafted a mask and prepared for war. Standing atop a rooftop, he looked out over the city, knowing the Goblin's days were numbered. The Spider-Man had arrived. He takes a breath, then jumps, testing his web slinging in the open night air. There's no time to waste. He's decided to confront Ben Ulrich, to get him on board with bringing down the Goblin once and for all. But when he arrives at Ben's place, the scene freezes him in his tracks. Ben is lying lifeless on the floor. The apartment is trashed, a silent wreck. Peter calls the cops, but it doesn't go smoothly. For a brief moment, they think maybe Peter killed him. The suspicion fades quickly, dismissed as another unsolved murder tied to Ben's drug habit and strange stories no one ever believed. Meanwhile, the Goblin is furious. Ulrich's files, what little the police found, are worthless. Confetti, he calls them. He corners Jonah Jameson, warning that if JJ is holding anything back, there will be consequences. Jameson insists there was nothing else. The Goblin throws him out, pacing, wondering where the rest of the information is, and who Ulrich would have trusted enough to keep it. Walking down the street, Peter is stopped by a man. Miss Hardy, he's told, has heard about Ben's death and wants to offer her condolences in person. At the Black Cat, Ox spots Peter heading to Felicia Hardy's office. Inside, she's waiting. She tells him straight Ben was going to expose the Goblin, and it's all because of Peter that Ben took that risk. She hands Peter the real files on the Goblin, warning him not to take them to the Bugle. You'll know how to use them, she says. Later, in his room, Peter sits in silence, staring at the files. Ulrich should have turned these in 6 months ago, he thinks. Maybe Uncle Ben would still be alive if he had. Aunt May knocks, steps in, and asks if he wants to talk about Ben. Peter calls him a liar and a coward. May's face hardens. Ulrich did right by Peter, she says, and now Peter needs to do right by him. At Calvary Cemetery in Queens, the funeral is somber. After the service, Jonah takes Peter aside. He offers comfort, then quickly shifts to questioning. Did Ben take him into his confidence? What did he tell him? Peter's spider sense tingles. He dodges the questions, slipping away. Spider-Man's war on the Goblin escalates. He crashes deals, smashes operations, and leaves a black spider calling card wherever he goes. The pressure mounts. One of Norman's clients gives him a week to fix the problem or lose their business. Norman starts suspecting Peter of feeding Spider-Man information. Ox confirms it. He saw Peter with Felicia at the Black Cat. Norman orders his gang to bring Parker in. Then the Bugle turns. An article trashes Spider-Man's efforts, and Peter decides to confront Jameson about becoming a mouthpiece for the Goblin. But when he arrives, Jameson's already been shot multiple times. Bleeding out, JJ mutters, "He's the master of disguise. You won't believe you're," and dies before finishing the sentence. Police burst in and open fire on Spider-Man. Wounded, Peter escapes to his hideout. He digs through the Goblin's files, searching for the missing piece. One name sticks out, someone he doesn't recognize, until it clicks. At the morgue, he presses his hand to Jameson's face, leaving an imprint. The truth hits him. The chameleon, Craven's half-brother, had been posing as Jonah, controlling the press for the Goblin. But where's the real Jameson? We find him in a cage, locked beside a restless tiger, deep in the Goblin's lair. The Goblin leads Felicia into the room. "We're just waiting for one last guest," he says. Back at Peter's home, May sits alone in the quiet, unaware of the shadow passing above, the Vulture circling. The Vulture drops down from above, eyes glinting as he hisses at May. Husband had more meat on him, he taunts, circling her like a predator, claiming Ben had been delicious. Fear grips her, but behind him, Spider-Man lands silently. He swings into action, his voice calm but commanding. "Drop her, Tombs." The Vulture hesitates and then releases May. Peter's mind flashes to Uncle Ben. Anger, grief, and righteous fury coalesce, and he fires 3 precise shots. Toombs collapses. May stumbles back, horrified, shouting at Peter. How could he shoot an unarmed man? She reminds him he could have used his webs. The papers were right. Spider-Man isn't the hero she thought. May demands the gun. Peter knows the goblin will never stop. He shakes his head, leaving without answering. Spider-Man moves fast, heading toward the so-called torture house to find Jameson. Inside, Felicia struggles, demanding to be freed. Norman smirks, revealing that JJ has been captive for weeks, and no amount of pleading has worked. Felicia freezes. Jameson is alive. She explains everything. When Ulrich asked for the files, she had them. She had been in Ben's apartment when he was shot, fled through the fire escape. Now the goblin decides that Felicia must be punished for killing one of his men. Felicia lashes out, scratching Norman's face. Enraged, he plans a slow, cruel death, tossing her into a cage full of spiders. But just then, the Vulture arrives, and Spider-Man drops from the ceiling, unseen until the last second. He webs Montana, dodges bullets from Craven, and swings a pipe into Ox, knocking him unconscious. Craven fires again, but Spidey hurls his pet monkey into the line of fire, and it falls lifeless. Craven snarls, but a quick swing of the pipe floors him too. The goblin presses a lever, opening the tiger's cage beside Jameson. The beast lunges, but Spider-Man lands on its back and webs its jaws shut. He turns to free Jameson, who urges him to go after Felicia, still being dragged away. Craven regains his footing, mouth broken, muttering incoherently. Spider-Man cracks a joke, shoves him into the spider cage, letting the spiders swarm and bite him. Norman and Felicia flee into the sewers. Felicia warns him that every crooked cop and politician will be after him now. Spider-Man follows, grappling with the goblin, knocking the gun into the murky water. In the struggle, Osborn yanks off Spider-Man's mask, revealing Peter's face. Peter counters, pulling at Osborn's mask to expose him too. The goblin talks, voice tight with bitterness. He recounts his childhood in the freak show, tormented by the kids who threw rocks at him. Now feared and respected, he tells Peter to pull the trigger, be a hero. Peter thinks of Ulrich, Uncle Ben, and May, of a world where people don't kill like animals. He makes his choice. Norman will face justice, not death. Norman grabs Peter's gun, aiming, but Peter uses his webs to jam the barrel. The gun backfires. As the goblin tries to flee, he runs into Craven, swarmed in spiders. The two vanish into the sewers, leaving only ripples behind. 2 months later, Felicia sits in her apartment, reading the paper aloud to her many cats. 17 high-ranking officers and politicians will face charges for corruption. Spider-Man appears at her window. She asks him to remove his mask. He does. He asks about her past with the goblin, about Ben. She refuses to answer, shrugging it off. It's none of your business. Peter hands her a photo of Ben and Felicia smiling together, a small token of what was lost. She's left alone with it, a faint smile tugging at her lips. The city moves on. The goblin and his cronies are either jailed or dead. JJ returns to the Bugle. May continues her endless lectures. Peter swings across the skyline, ever vigilant, knowing that as long as he fights, the good guys always win.